All right. Hello, hello. Hi. Good evening,
Hi.
everyone. This is Farhan from Noble Sky, and happy to have with me the beautiful and wonderful Miss Veronique. Hi,
Thank
Veronique. How
you.
are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. We had beautiful weather today, so that was great.
That was in Bali, right? Because in Singapore it
Yes.
was pretty warm. It was very
Was it,
warm.
well, it was warm too, but where I live, I'm in the up the hills, and when
Mhm.
it's very very cloudy, like it's been this past week, it gets really cold. I have to wear socks.
Oh, wow. Socks.
Yeah, I know.
You won't get that in Singapore for sure. Socks are
Oh,
like
I
a
have been
no-no for
known
now.
to.
Right. In any case, let's welcome everyone who's tuning in right now. It's 9:30 p.m. Singapore time, Malaysia time, and probably 8:30 in Indonesia. Um, and tonight's a Monday night. It's a public holiday actually in Singapore. We
Is
just
it? Oh
celebrated.
yeah,
Yep.
happy
Yeah. We just
anniversary, Singapore.
yeah. Thank you. It's been 55 years. So yesterday was quite interesting because for the first time we're not having the grand parades and all, but we had like smaller versions of it, like drive past on the streets and all. So it
Hmm.
was quite interesting. And I
Hmm.
actually went out at night to, uh, I think around the island at 8:20 p.m. was some fireworks were going on. So I actually drove out with my family to catch the fireworks at night. So it
Yes.
was pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone else who's tuning in tonight is a very interesting topic that we are going to be talking about, and in fact, it's sort of like a part two of what we spoke about previously, right? We spoke about numbers in terms of compounding, the power of
Hmm.
compounding. I think that was a very interesting topic, right? Which Veronique shared with us about how you want to grow your money, understanding how compounding work. And tonight we're going to be talking about three things, right? Three financial aspects or factors that you need to be aware of in order
Yeah.
to actually boost that wealth growth that if you want to pursue that. Did I
Yeah.
get it right?
You got it right.
All right,
Actually,
nice.
it's part three because you were not there at part one.
Ah, all right. Okay, I missed that one.
That's okay. I think you did listen, so that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's basically, I think the idea of this series is to educate people,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that we keep noticing is it doesn't get taught in school.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
it doesn't get taught in school how to manage your money, what's really important, what you need to focus on. So it's a bit of one of my soapboxes in a way.
Ah, right. In
Yeah.
any case, it's something that you are very familiar with, and I think numbers and financial numbers are something that you are
Mhm.
very familiar, and that's why we are happy to have you to share with us,
Thank you.
your knowledge on this matter. So we I think as we are waiting for more people to get on, I think we have some people here who are just saying
Yeah.
hi from Jakarta.
Yeah.
Hello. Hey, hi. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I think in general, we have audiences from all over the world, but particularly from around the region, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and I think viewerships. We last I was the last round, or was it 2 sessions ago that we had with Patrick Sim from Florida?
Yeah,
That
last
was
Monday.
yeah. For those of you who are like tuning in for the first time, we actually do interviews with some of our strategic partners on the ground, especially those in the US, talking about real estate. So you can actually catch that one uh, if you have some time to learn more about what's going on in the US right now. So I think let's get into the topic, Veronique.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, do you want to get on with it?
Yes, let's get on with it. Can you press the share button?
Sure, here goes. Okay, know your numbers. Tell us all
Yes.
about it.
Well, one of the things that I noticed, as I said before, when I was talking about education, is the fact that it seems like a lot of people do not really know the important numbers for themselves. right? They have ideas, so we hear different things like, and we use those as well. For instance, that your rent should not be more than a third of your salary and things like that. But it
Mm.
doesn't really have a lot of meaning for people. So I thought, okay, let's pick three simple ones that people can really look at. Just simple.
Mm.
But the minute you have that knowledge, that's power.
Sure. All right.
So,
Let's
oops,
go.
sorry. Okay, right. I hope you can see it. I can't see you if I can see my screen. So.
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Okay, great. You can see my screen, so that's perfect. So the first number, and just write it down, net worth.
Right. Net worth.
Right. That sounds simple, and really it is. Right. It's how much are you worth?
Hmm.
And really what we're talking about is your assets minus your liabilities. So you might tell me, oh, yes, well, I have a car. That's an asset.
Hmm. Is it?
Mhm. It is not, actually. So one of the easiest definition to know what assets and liabilities are is an asset puts money in your pocket.
Right.
A
Okay.
liability takes money out of your pocket.
All right. Simple enough. Yeah.
Simple enough. But when you start looking at it in this window, in this light, you might end up thinking, oh, actually, my house might be a liability,
Okay.
right?
That usually isn't the case for most people. I mean, naturally, people would think it's an
It's an
asset.
asset.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there
So.
are places, Singapore is one of them, unfortunately, where
Mhm.
sometimes it is a liability because you might be able to rent a place for much less than you would pay in mortgage.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's very true for Singapore's
Uh-huh.
context. Yes.
So in this context, you need to kind of ask yourself, okay, asset or liability. For sure, a car never qualifies as an asset unless it's a classic car, right? I don't know, a 1920s Renault or something that could be maybe sold for way more than you bought it. But otherwise, it's always a liability. Have you ever heard this kind of joke? You buy a new car, you drive it out of the lot, and it's worth 30% less.
Actually, that's not a joke. It's pretty true. It's
Well,
very
no,
true.
in Singapore, I think you have the certificate of entitlements, and that's still
Yeah.
worth money.
Yeah, it is, but still, the same thing still applies here. The moment you drive it
Hmm.
out of the showroom, you want to sell it off, it's going to cost that much lesser. Yes,
Yes,
thereabouts.
yeah. So it's an interesting exercise to sit down and literally work this out. Okay, these are my assets. These
Mhm.
are my liabilities, and assets is not the price you paid for it. Assets is what could you sell them for right now.
Okay, the current value right now, right?
Yes. So if you have a lot of if right, and I know it's not the case, but if your wife bought a number of Louis Vuitton bags, they may be very pretty, they may be very well kept, but it's probably not worth the amount of money that you paid for it, unless it's a special edition. But that's the
Right.
French person speaking, right?
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so so I should start telling my wife not to buy those bags.
Probably, but
No,
one is fine.
I'm just
But
kidding.
yeah, my question is always how many shoulders and how many hands do you have to carry bags?
Yes. Well, I actually I wouldn't want to make much comments about this because you don't want to incur the wrath of the
You know
the
what they say, right?
ladies.
Happy
Yeah,
wife,
yeah. Happy wife,
happy
happy everything,
life.
happy
Exactly.
everything. Yeah,
Yes, you're a good man. She's trained you well.
yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so that's
Anyway,
very interesting. Yeah, I sort of like understood this, and I think it might be also something pretty new to some people who are actually looking at it. If you really think about the things that you have, your possessions, and then you start thinking about current value that you have it at right now,
yeah,
and they may not be worth as much as you might think.
yes,
Yes.
not
So
as
that,
much as we think it is, for sure.
mhm. Right. Okay.
So that's the first thing. Out of this as well is thinking about how much of your income you are actually saving.
Hmm. Okay. What are we exactly looking at?
Um, well, the recommendation is to save at least 20% of your income every year, every month,
Right. Okay.
right? And that goes into your net worth if you invest it properly.
Okay.
Right. But it's something to think about because when we talked about the jars, we make recommendations, right? And well, recommendation is not the right word, but there's suggestions that, for instance, you could put 10% into your financial freedom account or 20% in your financial freedom account. And then you have a couple of movements around the world for people that want to retire early and with financial freedom, and that save up to 80% of their income.
Wow.
But
How do you do that?
that's not real life. But they live with their parents, they're not married, they don't have kids to bring to school, this kind of thing.
Right.
So, but
Okay.
it's an important number that you need to know.
Okay. So knowing your net worth, because you're saying the amount of money you save, and
Hmm.
probably not just about saving, it's also about investing it, right? That
That too.
that helps to increase the bottom line, your net worth, right? Overall, like I
Yeah,
think most people are actually afraid of the idea of having money and
yeah,
then overspending or
yes.
spending on things that eventually don't give them any kind of returns. So that's I think it was another topic which we discussed, right, on
But
compounding.
I wish people would also learn that it's not a good idea to spend more than what you earn.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not as obvious, I think, in Asia, but in the US, for instance, you students come out of university with debts, not just student loans, but credit card debts,
Yeah, we've heard
right?
of that.
Yeah. So, and this is actually something that I've heard time and time again. People save money, but they still
Mm.
have credit card debts,
Yeah.
right?
So if you were to take the net worth, I mean, if you were to calculate the liabilities, then the credit card bills will actually form liabilities, right?
Yes.
So you gotta think about
Yes.
that as well.
Yeah. The other thing with credit card debts is the interest rate on credit card debts
Oh
is much
yes.
higher than probably what you could ever earn as an income from your savings.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not
So
go
that
there for now.
okay.
I think
But
you will. I think
something to
we
think
might scare
about.
some people. Yeah, we're probably gonna get some people scared. But I do get the point. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't
But
want
which
them
is
to
why
be
we are
scared.
discussing
I
it.
want them to be reasonable.
Yeah. But I think it's very important that we actually talk about these numbers and the realities of it all. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I would agree. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So your next set of number goes with what we have discussed, but it's your cash flow,
Okay. And cash flow.
right? Um, in business, this is something that I learned very, very early on, is that cash flow is really what makes a difference between a company that is successful and one that isn't.
Hmm.
Yes, a company needs to make profit, but a
Right.
profit is just a number on paper.
Yeah.
If there is no cash in the coffer,
Hmm.
the company dies.
Agreed.
And it is the same thing with people. So it's not just about how much money comes in, but it's what is really available after you paid for everything.
Right. Okay. So
Right.
which is like it's like that buffer amount that's always there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, to be honest, that cash flow um, is also what you can save, but you need to know how much cash is really coming in. Because,
Hmm.
for instance, you could say, well, I take home $10,000, right? But if your debt repayment is 8,000, and you have to live, sorry, on the other two,
Hmm.
right? And then, depending on where you live, taxes may have to be paid afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
This is something that tricks a lot of young people because they get the money, they spend the money, not realizing that at the end of the first year or year and a half, they have to pay taxes.
Yeah. The most basic of all would be the income taxes.
Yes.
And yeah, especially for those who may have just gotten into the working world and starting to earn their income and all,
Yeah.
they may, yeah, like you're saying, right, got money in hand, happy going out and spending it all, and
Yes.
then after year one, the IRS starts to send you letters and telling you to start filing. Then that's where you start,
Exactly.
yeah, that's
Exactly.
where you start
And then the
panicking.
question is like, what do you mean? I'm
Yeah.
supposed to pay something else?
Yeah.
So that's some of the things that really you need to take into account with your cash flow.
Hmm.
And there are ways to increase your cash flow, not just in terms of decreasing your expenses,
Hmm.
but there's also other things that you can do to bring in more cash into your life. Right? It could be second job or um, starting a new business. I know you do a bit of online. You have an
Yeah.
online shop, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I
that's
do.
extra cash flow, right?
Yeah. That's one of the sources of income that I do have.
Hmm.
Putting it, yeah, because I do it online, so it's less of a personal physical commitment
Yeah.
in there. So that's what makes it interesting. And I think also because if you're talking about source of income, and there are, given today's context, the internet and everything, there's just too many ways that you can actually get down and doing it, right? Or even if not for the net, right? I think some people here in Singapore, at least, people who have some spare time, what they do is they go and deliver food, right? Like Grab
Ah,
food, Deliveroo, or what is that? Yeah,
yeah,
Deliveroo,
yeah,
Food Panda, things like that. It's
yeah.
just for some additional pocket money. But I
Hmm.
think if the important thing is if they understand how to manage that amount of money and maybe invest it somewhere, that money could actually grow.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that goes with that though is when you increase your take home, is
Mhm.
some people have a tendency to actually also increase their expenses,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
right?
think that's where the balance needs to come in, right? But I'm not sure if you're going to touch on this point. I think I believe your point number three will talk about the targets that you have, the financial target that you have, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes,
because most
absolutely.
people, if they have money coming in and without a target in mind, like I need to reach a certain number by a certain age, for example, they
Hmm.
may not see the point of like, now I have additional money and I need to put it aside to reach that target. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think uh, that is what is lacking in most of us. I feel in terms of financial planning, we don't look at it that way. We only look at what's coming in. The cash flow looks good, right? I have lots of money coming in, but I also have lots of money going out, and
Hmm.
everything seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yes,
actually
but
reality
you
is
need,
could
you
be
need
an
that
issue.
buffer, right?
Yep.
You really need that buffer, and it's the same thing for your business activities. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
It's always how it works, right?
Yeah.
So, so the last one is my favorite. This is the
Yeah.
financial freedom number. Some people call it something else entirely,
What would that be?
but um, what it would take for you to be able to say bye bye to your employer, but not in such nice terms. Okay.
Fire your boss.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All
The
right.
Fire Your Boss Fund is a pretty good one for that.
Yeah.
But the idea is if you have your money, you're going to be invested in something, right?
Hmm.
You're not probably going to leave it hanging in the bank doing nothing. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody knows about inflation. There's different school of thoughts about where we're going with inflation for sure. But most likely, most people have been told not to leave the money under the mattress unless it's in gold bars, but that's not comfortable. And not to leave it just in the bank. So they make the money work, right? whether it's in a fund, whether it's in property, whether it's in investing in a business, anything. They want to make the money work. It is really important to know how much your money is making first. That's the first thing, right?
Okay.
And that kind of links back to our previous conversation about compounding as well.
Yes. Right.
So if I want to generate the income that would cover my current income, how much money do I need to have in my pocket?
Whip out a calculator. I have no idea.
Well, nobody can, but let me take a really simple example. My current expenses are $100,000 a year, right? And I'm invested in something that is very nice and actually generates a 10% net number for me per annum.
Okay.
So if it generates 10%, it comes to sense that I need to have $1 million in my fund,
To
and
make.
it will generate me the same amount, the 100,000 that I want.
Yes, I see. I get it. Okay.
Right? I made it super simple. But you remember last time we had this conversation, we actually looked at the reverse compound as well.
Yes, yes. I think that was quite revealing.
Mhm.
The idea that you actually have a target, and I think you probably need to sit down and think about, maybe 20 years from now, and maybe if you have young kids, and 20 years from now,
Yes.
by the time they're actually gone out to school, or you need to pay off their school fees, right, and all
Yeah.
things like that. I
Yeah.
saw you looking up.
Well, my son turned 16 in 12 days, so
Right.
I
Okay, I get it.
understand.
Yeah. So we look at those numbers, and then like a 20 years down the road number, right? And then you
Yeah,
reverse engineer what you need to
yeah,
do
yeah.
now, today.
Yeah, but the other thing is, if you think, okay, it's going to be 20 years down the road, you can actually think, okay, the whatever amount of money I put in there will also compound itself. Because once you start doing, really using it as financial freedom number, that means that you keep taking out the interest. So it's not going to compound anymore.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But I think people, how about discipline? How about having that discipline? How hard is it to have the discipline to keep your money in a portfolio which keeps growing 20 years down the road? I
I
have no idea.
know it is difficult, especially like you want a new house or anything like that. Discipline is a really really big thing. You're absolutely right. It is easy to let your expenses go up, right? And sometimes they go up without you wanting them to go up. Like things are getting more expensive. So that's also that. This is where awareness makes a world of difference,
Yeah.
and
And
knowing what it's going to be for.
again, can you repeat that?
And knowing what it's going to be for. So, for instance,
Okay.
if I know that I want to be financially free in 5 years, have all my expenses paid, am I going to pilfer the money from my savings? Or am I going to think, that's another 6 months. This great holiday I'm taking, that's another 6 months of me working before I
Right.
can be financially independent.
Okay, so you got to look at the trade-off and how much time is it, what is the time trade-off and what is the financial trade-off, and
Exactly.
also I suppose also what is the what you got to stand to lose, right, in terms of like instead of spending on a holiday and
Yeah,
but saving it for now to invest.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
you I think you're very right, Veronica, when you mentioned about awareness. I think it's something that really we are not taught these things in school.
Yeah, yeah.
We're at least not taught to think about it.
Hmm.
I think it's if at least it has to come to some level of thinking about it and understanding, because when we learn about history in general, I may be wrong, the syllabus might have changed by now, but during my time we didn't learn about the history of the economics, right? But we learned about history of World War One, World War Two, and the Great Depression and things like that. But we didn't really learn about the financial lessons of the past in school.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we probably have to learn about it ourselves. And yeah, I think this conversation it's good because
Yeah.
we get to actually discuss these matters.
You actually just touched on my first and final point. So series of point is educate yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Educate yourself. There's a number of excellent, there is so much good material available on YouTube and other things like that. Just get a financial education. Don't just believe what your private banker said. What I make a spelling mistake in there as well. Um, but what your private banker is telling you, just educate yourself. Ask questions. Right.
Right. Okay.
Have a company family meeting every quarter with your spouse. Educate the kids already. If your kids are a bit too young, maybe not. But the minute they're above a certain level, you could at least give them an understanding about what a budget is and what it means.
Yeah, I think that conversation will be coming soon in my house. Yeah, right. Because the eldest one, it's gonna be going to next year. It's gonna be 13, going on
Yeah,
to secondary school. So it's gonna be a different environment and different thing for her to deal with altogether, especially even in the financial sense. Okay, actually, Veronique, there's one comment which I just want to highlight.
yeah.
We just want to look at this. I think this Buta Buta is her name. She mentioned
Mhm.
about when my company wants to invite an investor to have a joint operation, we need to calculate assets, which includes inventories plus cash flow, or the executive summary, target and strategy. I think she's asking a question. Yeah. So do you calculate assets plus cash flow or the executive summary? I'm not sure if you're familiar with this.
I'm not sure I understand what the question is because the executive summary in for a company investment decision, that's just a short snapshot of what the company is and could be, right?
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure what the question really is. On the other hand, we do absolutely need to calculate the value of something, and the value of a person is a lot, well, I was going to say a lot easier. In a way, it is a lot easier than a complicated company, right? But it's just really a question of looking at the assets and how much is cash flow adding to the assets every year is how I see it, to make it simple.
Yeah, I think it's a whole different thing when we're talking about personal
Right.
finances and corporate finance, right? I think it's
Yeah,
two
and with
different things.
fundraising, it's even a very different kettle of fish. So,
Uh,
our goal is to make it simple, right?
mhm.
It's to make it simple because if it's too complicated, we won't do it as people, as personally.
Yeah.
So, as much as possible, keeping track of where things are going. That's the first one. There's different school of thoughts about the latte factor. If you save the amount of money you would spend every day on the latte. And nevertheless, it is interesting to notice where your money disappears.
Disappear. That's the word.
Aside,
Okay. I think this Buta Buta, right? She's. I hope I'm getting your name right. She's asking whether inventory is equals to assets.
oh, it depends what you use your inventory for.
Okay.
And I'm not an accountant, let me add this, that before I actually was an analyst, I failed accountancy twice when I was at university. Not advanced, I just did not like it, right?
Right.
So I can't really talk along those lines. But inventory, generally, if it can be sold, this is the I would value it at what it can be sold at. Right. So, for instance, with the flipping, a house that we will flip is inventory, but not if we renting it out
Right. Okay.
because it's a good, right? You're turning it over. That's it.
Okay. I think Rauf just chimed in saying that inventories are technically assets. So I think again we're looking at how the position of these inventories, right?
Yes.
Where they are, or how they are, or are they going to be eventually something that you cannot sell for anymore, and they
Hmm.
may
Yeah,
become
they will
something.
fit in the assets category for sure. But this
Yeah.
is the difference between corporate and personal, right? We're
Mhm.
talking much more personal finance right now.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. Very interesting.
so yes, teach your children to track their money.
Yeah, I think that is something that I've sort of like have a system concepts already. They understand it, but I haven't really ingrained in them, and something that
Yeah,
they need to think about. But yeah, I think all these conversations that we're having, it's really helpful, and I hope it's also being helpful for the
yeah,
viewers out there.
yeah,
And actually, I just want to touch on the part about you mentioned about getting education, being
yeah.
educated. Is there any one source that you would actually recommend someone to look into, any I don't know, in an economist, or maybe just someone who you find really good, that you feel that someone should actually look at, a
It
recommended read
depends.
or something?
It depends what level you go for. I would simply start with the lowest, well, not lowest level because it's not low level, but I would
Mm,
simply start with Think and Grow Rich
right. Okay.
and The Richest Man in Babylon. It's basics, and it's quite a good way to look at things. So
Okay. Interesting.
yeah.
So
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 I want to add.
those are okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to add one more thing, which I think is
Hmm.
important, uh, which is that you remember I said stay on track.
Hmm.
If you make a plan,
Yeah.
follow the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really as much as possible. Yes, sometimes we might need to change. We might need to change what we're doing and how we're doing it. But once you have made a plan, unless there is a major difference or a major life challenge that happens, stick to the plan. Because this is
Mhm.
when people lose money, is when they completely switch the plan around.
Yeah, I sort of heard a discussion from an economist over the radio quite recently as well, talking about in your investments, right? And they're saying like most of the time, if you have your investments spread out in terms of different asset classes and all that, and you should actually be safe for the long run, even with situations like the pandemic.
Yes,
You
yes,
expect economic cycles going down and all. So, but I think most people get scared and they may want to prematurely uh, take their money out, right? So I
yes,
think that may have an adverse effect on the overall
yes.
portfolio,
Well, you
right?
remember, I think we talked about that last time when emotions are high,
Uh-huh.
intellect is low,
Yes, yes, you
right?
mentioned.
And that's really important with investments. That's why if you have a plan and it's on paper, it makes it a little bit easier. So it's important to keep that discipline and stay on track.
Hmm.
So
And I
if you
think
know what,
probably we,
yes, sorry, you
yes,
think?
I was saying, yeah, probably we may want to talk about this on a separate topic, just about
Hmm.
how you maybe want to talk about diversification and what it means, probably to when should you actually decide to get out online. It's a very tricky question, I think, because like you mentioned, if it's an emotional reaction, you can't really stop anyone from.
It's an ongoing conversation,
Yes.
that one.
I think
Yes, it's
that's a
like,
very interesting one, which we may have in the future.
yeah. Yeah, we probably can do that at some stage soon, actually.
All right. All right.
Um, yeah, it's not the easiest part of the conversation in a way because when emotions are high, people are not very logical.
Yeah,
So
sounds
so,
about
but
right.
yes, three things to remember. You know what your net worth is, what your
Hmm.
cash flow is,
Right.
and what your financial freedom number is.
Okay. Very nice. So this, it's, I think, sets the tone right for your personal finance. And I think, just to qualify, I think there's more than these 3 points to consider, but these are
Plenty.
3 really interesting
Yeah.
factors that we need to understand and look at, because I think they are the 3 main ones, and I think it encompasses a lot more things which are related to what we spoke about, right?
Yeah. The last thing that I want to say, you asked me about recommendation.
Mhm.
If people are interested in economics, but really economics, it's a bit complicated. There is
Uh,
a gentleman called George Gammon, who is amazing, and he takes everything and usually explains it in 3 simple steps. But it is probably it's high level, but it's very
okay,
good.
for the nerds and the geeks.
For the nerds, yes. The nerd in me is very happy when he drops another video with a whiteboard and drawing and
Uh,
numbers everywhere. But I can understand that other people would not want to be doing that.
yeah, but I think some people enjoy those numbers,
Mhm.
and people enjoy all this type of deeper level analytics and looking at
Yes,
the macro and the micro. I think that'll be very interesting as well. I think
yeah.
there's never an end to wanting to for the need to educate yourself. There's no one person with all of the answers, but like I very much agree with what you have to say, Veronica. That level of awareness has got to be there. You've got to start with awareness and then go
Mhm.
from there. I think
Yes.
that's my takeaway
Start
from here.
start from the
Yeah,
basics
yeah,
and then build up.
yeah. Okay. So very nice. We have 36 minutes in, and I think
Wow.
we've covered quite a number of very interesting things.
Mhm.
I've really enjoyed this session. Thank you very much, Veronique, for coming
Thank you,
on,
Fahad. I was
sharing with us.
coming on. I enjoy
Yeah,
coming on with you. So
yeah. Okay.
it's
Any last
fun to cover.
concluding words from your side before we end?
Well, I think you already picked up on what was important from my point of view, which is really make sure that you know your numbers. Look
Mhm.
at least the basics. Start from the basic. Don't try to be too fancy.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Veronique. And just to
Thank you.
everyone out there who's watching, if you do have questions with regards to the topics that we've been discussing, or anything related to the finances or to US real estate and things, this is what we have been talking about a lot. You have questions, just simply drop them in comments or PM any one of us. We'll be happy to address them or discuss them together with you. All right.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
there's nothing else, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again, Veronique, for coming on.
My
And so
pleasure.
we'll end tonight with have a very beautiful night. Tomorrow we start a working day, but it's a short week since it's Tuesday already. So have fun and
What
take
short
care.
week? I work today. I
That's
get
for
my
the official
national
people.
holiday next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in
All right.
Indonesia.
So in
All
Indonesia,
right.
right? Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Good night,
Have fun.
Fahan.
Good
Good
night,
night,
Veronique and
everybody.
everyone. Bye bye.